Welcome to Revenge Threads. Today's story: a lawyer destroys a man who threatened her best friend. Before we begin, drop a comment. Where are you watching from or how old are you? Let's see who's out there. It was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday. One of those dull work-from-home days where nothing much happens. I had coffee in one hand, my laptop open, and my cat demanding attention as usual. And then I got the message from Katie. Not a long one. Just a few words, clipped, awkward. But I could feel the panic between the lines. Can I call you? Something's wrong. Katie never panics. She's sweet, soft-spoken, sometimes a little naive, but she's not someone who rattles easily. So when I picked up and heard the tremble in her voice, I sat up straight. I think I really screwed up, she said. I didn't answer. Just let her speak. I sent him pictures, she whispered. And now he's threatening to post them. That sentence hit me like a punch to the throat. The he in question was a guy she'd met online. They'd been chatting for a few weeks, maybe a little longer. She'd never met him in person, but he'd seemed normal enough. Smart, charming, emotionally aware, all the typical catnip. He told her he traveled a lot for work, lived abroad, but was planning to visit the US soon and wanted to meet. And at some point she let her guard down. Send a few pictures. Nothing overly graphic, just enough to feel vulnerable. Enough that when things started to feel off, she backed out. And that's when he turned. Within minutes he was sending threats, demands, telling her if she didn't do what he said, he'd post everything. Her photos, her name, her city, even details she'd never knowingly shared, but somehow he knew, her university, her workplace, her friends' profiles. He wasn't just bluffing. He'd done his homework. And Katie? She was terrified. Now there's something you should know about me. I'm not just her best friend. I'm also a lawyer. Not the corporate kind. Not the I'll write you a strongly worded letter kind. I specialize in digital crimes and harassment. It's not just my profession. It's my domain. And when I say I live for moments like this, I don't mean it lightly. Because when someone threatens my people, I don't scream. I don't cry. I build cases. And I burn lives to the ground. So while Katie was still on the phone, her voice breaking, I was already opening tabs. What's his username? I asked. He gave it to me. I copied it into 5 different platforms: Reddit, TikTok, Discord, Instagram, Twitter. Most came up empty. But then TikTok lit up. His handle matched one I'd seen before in online comment sections. Condescending, smug, always flirting with the edge of harassment. The TikTok had videos of him. His voice. His face. That stupid smirk. Boom. I had a face. From there it was a rabbit hole. One I know how to sprint through in heels. His TikTok led to an Instagram. His Instagram had his real first name in the bio. Even better, it was linked to his LinkedIn. And wouldn't you know it, in one of his old Insta stories, he'd posted a selfie wearing a polo with a company logo on it. Same logo that matched his LinkedIn profile banner. In less than 15 minutes, I had his full name, company role, and the city he worked in. Next came the license plate. Because smart girl that she is, Katie had saved a few of his pictures, including one with his motorcycle. Zoom. Enhance. There it was. His plate. In full view. No. Now I had everything I needed. I've got him, I said quietly. Katie sniffled. What do you mean? I mean, I know his full name, where he works, where he lives, who his boss is, and what law enforcement office I need to send this to. Pause. You're serious, she said. You're damn right I am. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about justice. About showing scumbags like him that anonymity isn't armor. That the internet isn't a shield when you're threatening a woman's safety. That for every predator hiding behind a screen, there's someone like me, with credentials, connections, and a raging sense of purpose. He picked the wrong girl to threaten. And the wrong lawyer to overlook. By the time Katie went to bed that night, I had a folder on my desktop labeled with his name. Inside it, screenshots, and more screenshots. You'd be amazed how many mistakes people make when they think they're invincible. He'd sent her pictures of his face, of his motorcycle, even his workplace. One of them showed a desk with his company-issued laptop in full view. Another had an open Outlook calendar on the screen. Corporate meetings, deadlines, names. Every detail he thought was casual. I logged, tagged, and time-stamped. And I wasn't even close to done. The next morning, I poured myself a coffee, put on my favorite hoodie, and opened the digital war table. First stop, his company. Thanks to LinkedIn, I had the name and location. I even had the name of his manager listed right there in his connections. I visited the company website, found the CEO, VP of HR, Director of Compliance, and Head of Public Relations. Then I did what any mildly vengeful woman with a law degree would do. I built an email list. I wasn't about to send some emotional rant. I was going to send a professionally worded, legally sound, evidence-backed statement that would make their legal department cry. Subject line: formal notice of digital misconduct by employee name. Body of the email: Dear company name, leadership. I am writing to you in my professional capacity as a legal advisor regarding a matter of serious concern involving your employee. His full name. I have attached verified screenshots and data logs indicating that your employee has engaged in the following actions via social media and private communication platforms. Explicit threats to release non-consensual intimate images of a U.S. citizen. Admission of past sexual activity conducted within your company's premises. Unauthorized photographs of your workplace and fellow employees without consent. Public sharing of proprietary information visible on a company-issued laptop. For your review, I have included screenshots of the threats, dialogue referencing workplace activities, photos sent by the employee in company attire and at your physical location. A photo showing a calendar of internal meetings on a company laptop. A motorcycle photo with visible license plate confirming identity. I will also be forwarding this information to local law enforcement in his jurisdiction and the appropriate office of the FBI, as the victim resides on U.S. soil and the threats qualify under federal law. I recommend your company take immediate disciplinary action and review internal policy enforcement before considering this employee for any further international travel. Kind regards, my full name, Attorney at Law. I read it twice, then sent it. Not just to HR but to the entire executive team. By the time I closed my laptop, I knew I had just detonated a grenade inside his professional world. And I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I drafted a secondary report for law enforcement. I knew his city, his company, his plate. It wasn't hard to get contact info for their local cybercrimes unit. And since Katie was a U.S. citizen and the threats were transmitted across borders, it became a federal issue. Lucky for me, I had a friend, my assistant U.S. attorney for our region. We hadn't spoken in a while, but one message later we were on the phone. I laid it all out. The threats, the evidence, the identification. When I finished, there was a pause. Then she said, "Send me everything. If he enters the US, I'll make sure we're ready for him." I didn't need to hear more. Biz now. Now he wasn't just dealing with a pissed-off lawyer. He was dealing with a system. Katie still didn't know the full extent of what I was doing. She only knew I'd handled it. She didn't ask questions. He trusted me. But every time I opened that folder, every time I added a new piece of proof, I thought about her voice on the phone that night. How small she'd sounded. How scared. And I promised myself, no matter what happened, I would make him regret the day he ever pressed send. And the best part? He had no idea what was coming. Not yet. But soon. It took less than 24 hours for the silence to break. I knew the email would hit hard, not just because of its contents but because of how it was delivered. HR doesn't like surprises. HR hates them. Videos. They're allergic to liability. So when I checked the anonymous inbox I'd set up, I wasn't surprised to find a response. "This matter has been escalated internally. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Please be assured that we take issues of misconduct and reputational risk seriously." Translation: he was screwed. Katie called me that afternoon. She sounded lighter. I haven't heard from him again, she said. That's good. I mean, it's weird. He was spamming me 3 days ago and now? Total silence. I smiled. He's probably busy. You know, panic, scrambling, job on fire. She paused. Wait, what did you do? Handled it. You keep saying that. I know. She let it go, but I could hear it in her voice, that shift from fear to relief. The emotional tension loosening its grip on her spine. She didn't need details. She just needed to feel safe again. And that was already happening. I checked his LinkedIn page later that night. It was gone. Vanished. No updates. No posts. Not even a profile picture. Either he'd deactivated or been told to disappear. I checked Instagram. Still there but private now. TikTok? Deleted. His online presence was vanishing one footprint at a time. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands and smiled to myself. This was the part one loved. Not the confrontation. Not the rage. The quiet collapse. Watching someone who thought they were untouchable realize they'd never been safe to begin with. Watching them sweat. Then the messages started. Not to Katie. To me. He'd somehow found the temporary email I'd used to contact his company. Maybe through metadata. Maybe through sheer luck. I saw the name in the inbox and felt nothing but calm. Who are you? You have no idea what you're doing. This is a misunderstanding. She wanted it too. And finally, please, can we talk? I didn't reply. I archived the emails, flagged them and forwarded them to Maya. Then I made a note, he's breaking. The thing people like him don't understand is that fear only works one way. When Katie was scared, she backed down. But me? When I'm scared, I dig in. So I kept going. I sent follow-ups to the company, updated them with the new emails he sent me. I made it clear that he was now reaching out after a formal complaint had been filed, which only strengthened the case for retaliation. Then I made contact with cybercrime investigators in his jurisdiction. Sent them the full case file, the screenshots, the license plate, everything. They didn't respond immediately. But I didn't need them to. I knew the wheel had started turning. No. It was just a matter of time. He messaged again 3 days later. This time from a new email address. I'm going to lose my job. Please. I didn't mean to scare her. I didn't think she'd go to a lawyer. That line. That one line. I didn't think she'd go to a lawyer. Not, I didn't do it. Not, I'm sorry for what I did. Just shocked that the victim had the audacity to fight back. Told me everything I needed to know. He didn't regret the threats. He regretted getting caught. I didn't reply to that either. But I saved it. Filed it. And smiled. Because his life wasn't just unraveling. He was doing so on record. In real time. For anyone who needed proof. It started with a subject line. Let me explain. I opened it not because I cared but because I wanted to document the fall. Inside was a wall of text. Long, rambling. Defensive. The kind of message that starts off like an apology but slowly mutates into a monologue of excuses and emotional manipulation. He wrote, I never meant to hurt her. I just felt betrayed. She led me on. We made plans. She told me she wanted to meet. Then she ghosted. Can you understand how that felt? Oh, I understood perfectly. This was the language of entitlement. Of someone who believed affection was a contract. That if a woman gave you attention, time, or vulnerability, it owed you something in return. And if she pulled back, you punished her. He went on. I only said those things because I was angry. I never would have actually posted the pictures. It was a bluff. Let me explain something. Threatening to release intimate images is not less of a crime because you didn't follow through. The threat itself is the felony. That's like saying, yeah, I waved the gun but I never pulled the trigger. Still illegal. Still punishable. Still your life falling apart. What struck me most was how little he mentioned Katie. He didn't talk about her as a person. He referred to her like a broken promise, a missed opportunity, a regret. And that's what made me angriest. Because Katie is kind. She's open. She gave him trust. And this man, this little coward, used it as currency. Something to spend, then threaten, then pretend never mattered. So I did what I do best. I weaponized his words. I replied, not to him but to HR. I sent a supplemental report with his new email included. Highlighted the parts where he admitted to the threats. Included the lines where he blamed her for pulling away. And I added a short note. This is not remorse. This is liability. Their reply came in under 6 hours. We can confirm that employee name has been terminated effective immediately. We are also conducting a review of all personnel privacy protocols. Victory? Yes. But I wasn't done. I drafted my final packet for law enforcement. Included a full timeline. From first contact to threat to fallout. Labeled folders, identity confirmation, threat evidence, retaliation attempts, corporate tie-in. Maya, the U.S. attorney I'd looped in, had already followed up twice. Send it all, she said. He said he was coming to the States, right? We'll be ready. I grinned. Because now if he so much as touched down at JFK or LAX or Dulles, he'd be flagged. Pulled aside. Investigated. You don't threaten a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil and get away with it. Not when she's got an attorney who takes everything personally. Katie still didn't know the full scope. She'd stopped asking. She knew I was handling it, trusted me, but one night while we sat on my balcony watching the lights of the city blink, she asked, "Why are you doing all this?" I looked at her, really looked, and said, "Because I've seen too many women walk away when they're scared, and I want him to remember that fear." She nodded slowly, then said, "You scare me a little." I laughed. Good, that means I'm doing it right. This wasn't revenge. Not really. This was accountability. Legal, documented, and permanent. The kind that ruins your name in HR systems. That marks your passport file. That follows you when you apply for jobs or visas or new apartments. That stains everything you touch with a shadow you can't shake. He thought anonymity protected him. He forgot that the internet is traceable. That I was traceable. And that I had the one thing he never expected. A bar license. After the termination, everything started disappearing. His accounts. Wiped. Instagram. Gone. TikTok. Deleted. Twitter. Scrubbed. Even his Reddit handle nuked overnight. Posts erased. Comments vanished. Pictures gone. It was as if he was trying to disappear from the internet altogether, like a fugitive burning documents in the night. I watched it all unfold tab after tab. It didn't matter. Because I had everything saved. Every photo. Every timestamp. Every line of text. Every screenshot with metadata intact. Every file name downloaded and organized like a prosecutor's dream. He could wipe himself off the map, but his digital DNA was already preserved, and not just by me. It was with his company's internal files. With HR. With Maya. With law enforcement in his country. You can delete a post, but you can't erase a record. Then came the final email. This time not from a burner. Not from an alias. It was his real name. The subject line? One last request. I didn't open it right away. I made tea, let the kettle whistle. Sat down in front of the screen like I was opening a confession from a man on death row. Inside it read, "You've made your point. I lost my job. My reputation is trashed. I had to move out of my apartment. My family found out. I'm done. You win. Please, just take it all down. Delete the folders. I'm not a threat anymore. I'm sorry." There it was again. Not regret. Just exhaustion. A desire to erase consequences. To rewind the tape. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to Maya. She responded instantly. Perfect. Admission of impact. Closing it with a bow. We both knew what that email was. Not an apology. A negotiation. One last attempt to claw something back. Anything. Dignity. Privacy. Hope. But that's not how this works. You don't get to weaponize trust and walk away because you're tired of being hunted. This wasn't about revenge. It was about precedent. And I wanted to make sure that if he ever tried this again, if he ever slid into another woman's DMs with sweet words and soft threats, he'd remember the scorch marks I left behind. So I started uploading. Oh, not the pictures. Not anything illegal. I uploaded his threats, fully redacted to protect Katie, to a professional misconduct database accessible by law firms and private background checkers. I uploaded a stripped-down version to a closed digital harassment case study library used by legal associations and advocacy groups. I submitted the case, anonymized, to an international cyber safety network that tracks abusers across borders. His usernames, his photos, his tactics, his pattern. Because Katie wasn't his first target. And if not for me, she wouldn't have been his last. I didn't tell her all of that. She was healing now, sleeping better, smiling again, slowly restoring the parts of herself that had curled up in fear. The fire had gone out. But the watchtower was still standing. And I was still in it. Because in this world we don't just need defenders. We need witnesses, archivists, quiet stormbringers with hard drives and timelines and friends in the right places. And that's what I became. Not because I wanted to, but because someone had to. Let him run. Let him rebrand. Let him pretend. Because someday, somewhere, when he least expects it, when he applies for a job or a visa or a business loan, someone will run a check. And I'll be there in the fine print. In the footnotes. In the warning flags they don't always explain. And all they'll need to see is one line. Previous involvement in digital harassment litigation. Records on file. That's enough. That's all it takes. No loud vengeance. Just a shadow that never leaves. It was a casual dinner. A few friends, nothing fancy. Pizza boxes on the table, wine glasses half full, soft music in the background. The kind of night that's supposed to remind you life is still normal. Still human. Until someone asked, "So how's the cyber case?" Everyone went quiet. I didn't plan on discussing it, but the words were already there, lingering in the air like smoke. So I gave them the short version. No names, no details. Just, a guy threatened to release intimate photos of someone close to me. I made sure he lost his job and can't get near another woman without a red flag popping up. One of my oldest friends, Julia, looked up from her glass. She didn't smile. She didn't say, "Good for you." He just said, "Don't you think that's a bit much?" The room stilled. I looked at her. Julia had always been the gentle one, the mediator, the both sides person, the one who believed in forgiveness above all else. "I mean," she continued, "he didn't actually post anything, right? And now his life is ruined. You don't feel like, maybe you went too far?" There was. Not from a stranger. Not from the guy himself. From someone I loved. Someone I trusted for years. And for the first time since I started this entire process, I paused. Did I go too far? Did I let the adrenaline turn into obsession? Had I blurred the line between protection and punishment? I sat with the question all night. It gnawed at me in the dark long after the guests left. I lay in bed, eyes on the ceiling, replaying every email, every screenshot, every legal clause I'd leaned on to make sure he couldn't hide. And then I remembered Katie's voice. The shaking. The silence between her words. The apology she made for his threats. I remembered how she double-checked her locks. How she stopped going out at night. How she flinched every time her phone buzzed. And how he grinned when he typed, "Do what I say or I'll ruin you." So no. I hadn't gone too far. The next day I called Julia. "About last night," I said. She sighed. "I didn't mean to upset you. I just think people make mistakes." "Yes," I agreed. And people also make choices. Repeated ones. Calculated ones. And sometimes those choices come with consequences. She was quiet. So I added, you don't get to make someone feel small, threatened, disposable, and then ask the world to be gentle when the tables turn. Maybe, she said, but don't you ever worry it changed you? I thought about that. And I answered honestly, I hope it did. Because the truth is I am different now. Sharper. Less patient with red flags. More aware of how fast harm can spread when people look the other way. But I'm not cruel. I'm not careless. I didn't destroy a man out of spite. I dismantled a predator out of principle. And if that makes me too much for some people, so be it. There's a saying in law school, you don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with water unless the fire walks upright and knows your name. He knew her name. So I became the flame he didn't see coming. And Julia? She'll never understand that kind of rage, that kind of resolve. But that's okay. She hasn't needed it yet. And I hope she never will. I hadn't planned on telling her everything. Not because I was hiding it, but because it didn't feel necessary. Katie was healing. She was getting her smile back 1 hour at a time. The last thing I wanted was to drag her back into the mess. But healing doesn't erase curiosity. One evening we sat on the floor of her apartment. No makeup, no distractions, just a bottle of wine, 2 chipped glasses, and the soft hum of the city outside her window. She looked at me and said, "What exactly did you do?" Not judgmental. Just honest. I could have dodged, changed the subject, told her it didn't matter. But Katie deserved the truth. So I told her. I told her about the TikTok handle, the Instagram breadcrumbs, the LinkedIn profile. About the branded polo in his picture, the work laptop full of confidential files. About the calendar screenshot, the license plate, the emails I sent to his company. I told her about Maya. About the FBI flag. About the folders I submitted to cybercrime units. I watched her eyes widen slowly, like waves rising in a storm. And then I told her about his emails. The apologies. The pleas. The line about how he never thought she'd go to a lawyer. When I finished, she didn't say anything for a while. Just sat there, glass in hand. Breathing. Finally, she said, "You really did all that, for me?" I nodded. Of course I did. She set her wine down. Then leaned forward and grabbed my hand. I didn't realize how bad it was until I heard you say it out loud. I know. I thought maybe he was just mad. Maybe I'd overreacted. You didn't. She looked at me, her eyes suddenly sharp. No, she said. I didn't. And something shifted in her face. Not just relief. Strength. I used to blame myself, she whispered, for sending the photos, for flirting, for not seeing the red flags sooner. But now, I don't. You shouldn't. I don't blame you either, by the way, for going that far. I smiled faintly. Some people think I went too far. Well, she said, some people have never been hunted. That hit like a truth I didn't know I needed to hear. She squeezed my hand again, firmer this time. You didn't save me, she said. You avenged me. There was no higher compliment. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. He poured us another glass. Then added, "Do you ever worry it made you colder?" I think it made me clearer. She nodded. Good. Stay that way. And in that moment I realized something powerful. Katie wasn't just a victim anymore. She was becoming someone else. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who wouldn't ignore the next red flag. Someone who, if it ever came to it, might fight the way I did. Not with anger. With precision. That night as I walked home I felt something new. Not rage. Not revenge. But a kind of peace. Because it wasn't just about bringing him down. It was about lifting her back up. About showing her that no matter how vulnerable someone makes you feel, there's always a way to take back control. Sometimes it's with a voice. Sometimes it's with silence. And sometimes it's with a lawyer who loves you more than her own peace. It began with a DM. Then a dozen. At first I thought they were spam. Blank profiles. Hidden followers. Generic names. But I clicked on one out of curiosity. Hi, I saw the thread Katie shared. I don't mean to bother you, but I think something similar is happening to me. I don't know who else to ask. I blinked. Clicked on the next. I don't know if you help people, but I have screenshots. He's threatening me. I'm scared. And another. Someone I know said you helped a friend. I need help. Please. The messages kept coming. From women I'd never met. Different names, different cities, different languages. But the same fear behind every word. I called Katie the next day. I think, I said slowly, I accidentally became a resource. She laughed. That's the most lawyer sentence you've ever said. But she was right. Because these women weren't just venting. They were asking for structure, steps, guidance, someone to tell them they weren't crazy, someone who knew the system and how to break through it. So I built something. It wasn't fancy. Just a simple shared drive at first. Templates, legal definitions, sample reports, guides on what to screenshot and how to trace IPs, instructions for reporting on different platforms, what not to do, what to say to HR, what to say to police. Then I created a second email account, one I could monitor. Not for emergencies, I wasn't a hotline, but for those who needed strategy. The inbox filled in 2 weeks. And I responded to every single one. One message stuck with me. A girl named Talia, college student, 19. Her ex had created a fake Instagram account and posted screenshots of their private messages out of context, framing her as unstable. He hinted he had pictures too, never posted them, just left the threat hanging like a knife in the air. She was too afraid to go to campus police. Too afraid to tell her parents. But she told me. And together we filed a report. Helped her collect digital evidence, contact the Right Abuse Prevention Group, document every instance of manipulation and threat. 3 weeks later he was suspended. Restraining order filed. And she messaged me with one word. Free. I stared at it for a long time. Just free. That's all she needed to say. I wasn't sleeping much. Balancing work and inboxes and Zoom calls with legal clinics wasn't easy. But every time I thought about stopping, I'd open another message. Another case. Another woman with a story that sounded too familiar. This wasn't a phase. It had become a purpose. One night Maya called me. I hear you've been busy. I laughed. Just a little. You know this could be a thing, right? Like, actual legal work. Policy-level stuff. You're building a grassroots case file on digital abuse that's more thorough than some agencies have. I paused. Because I hadn't thought about that. I wasn't trying to build an empire. I was just trying to keep women safe. But maybe the two weren't so different. So I bought a domain. Put up a simple site. No more silence. No more fear. You are not alone. That was the tagline. Under it, resources, contact forms, success stories. And one line bolded at the bottom. We are not victims. We are survivors with receipts. By the end of that month, I'd helped 11 women file formal complaints. 3 abusers were fired. 2 faced criminal investigations. And one of them, the one who said, "You'll never prove it was me," ended up doxxed by his own profile metadata. The irony was delicious. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. This was about prevention. About protection. About turning fear into power. And the best part? None of them ever knew how scared I was too. Scared that I wasn't enough. That I'd mess up. That I'd burn out. But I didn't. Because every time I wanted to stop, I remembered Katie's voice. You didn't just save me. You gave me my name back. I didn't realize how tired I was until I stopped moving. It had been months since I'd had more than 2 consecutive days off. Months of inboxes, legal templates, digital footprints, midnight phone calls, whispered stories through cracked voices on the other end of the line. So when I found a cheap cabin outside the city, no Wi-Fi, barely a cell signal, I booked it without hesitation. No drama. No predators. No vengeance. Just silence. And me. The first night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the sounds I'd forgotten how to hear. Wind in the trees, the creak of old wood, my own breath. It was too still. My body didn't trust it, like it had gotten used to always waiting for the next fire to put out. But by morning something inside me loosened. I made coffee. Read a book I didn't have to analyze. Took a walk without headphones. Felt strange not needing to watch. Not checking notifications every 20 minutes. Not building someone's digital defense like a soldier in a war no one saw but me. On the second day I sat by the lake with my journal, the one I never had time for anymore. And I wrote something I didn't expect. If I'm not fighting, who am I? It hit hard. Because so much of who I had become was reaction. Defense. The one who steps in when things go wrong. The one who fixes. Who finds. Who files. But I wasn't born like this. I became this. Built it piece by piece. Every document, every headline, every woman who said, "I'm scared." And I was proud. So proud. But I couldn't ignore the other side of that coin. There were moments I'd snapped at people who didn't deserve it. Moments I'd forgotten birthdays, ignored texts, missed dinners. Moments I'd chosen justice over softness and told myself it was noble. It was noble. But it also came with weight. And I had to ask myself, was I carrying this weight because it was mine to carry, or because I didn't know who I was without it? Was I fighting monsters? Or just making sure I never became the girl who got hurt again? I didn't have all the answers. But I let myself sit in the questions. And that felt like a kind of healing too. That evening I built a small fire. Just me, the stars, and the quiet crackle of burning wood. No inboxes. No names. No evidence chains. I thought of Katie. Of Talia. Of the others. And I smiled not because they needed me but because now, they didn't. Not in the same way. They had tools. Support. Each other. The ripple was real. And maybe I didn't have to swim so hard anymore to keep it going. Maybe I could rest. At least for a while. When I drove back to the city the next morning, my phone lit up with new messages. 2 new cases. 1 media inquiry. An invitation to speak at a digital rights conference. I didn't panic. I didn't feel the old surge of responsibility. I felt steady. Like I finally knew the difference between carrying a mission and being crushed by it. And that made all the difference. Because you can fight the darkness without letting it live in you. And you can protect without always being at war. I used to think power was loud. That it shouted in courtrooms, slammed doors in boardrooms, left echoes when it entered a room. I was wrong. Real power is quiet. It's a woman sitting across from her own fear, and not flinching. It's a voice on the other end of a phone saying, "He can't hurt you anymore." It's the stillness that follows justice. The kind that doesn't beg for applause. Only silence. Only space to breathe. The man who started all this. I haven't heard from him since his last email. Last I checked, he hadn't resurfaced. Not on platforms. Not in companies. Not even in whispers. But I don't need to follow him. Because I know he looks over his shoulder now. I know the internet that once made him feel invisible has become the very thing that marked him. And I know, if he ever thinks about doing this again, he'll remember my name. Even if he doesn't know how to spell it. He'll remember what it felt like to be hunted. To be caught. Katie's doing well now. She's happy. She laughs more. She joined a self-defense class and started volunteering with a digital rights nonprofit. One day she even told her story publicly, anonymously of course, but with fire in her voice. I watched it on my laptop and cried. Not because she was a victim, but because she had finally stopped being one. As for me, I still do the work. Not as often. Not every day. But enough. Enough to make sure that what I built, the folder, the framework, the voice, never disappears. Because I learned something through all this. You don't need to burn the world down to change it. You just need to light one match. And then protect the flame. People still ask if I'd do it all again. If I'd fight this hard, go this far, risk my time, my reputation, my energy just for one woman. And my answer is always the same. It was never just for one. Because predators don't stop until someone teaches them fear. And survivors don't heal until someone gives them back control. That's what I did. That's what I do. Not because I want revenge. Not because I need the fight. But because one day some girl will sit where Katie sat. Terrified, alone, powerless. And she'll reach out. And someone needs to be there. Someone with fire in her eyes. And a folder full of names. The world doesn't change with outrage. It changes with evidence. With law. With women who no longer apologize for how loud they've learned to be. So let them whisper. Let them fear me. Let them call me too much, too cold, too dangerous. They don't know the half of it. And they never will. The story ends here. But the shadow I left behind, that stays forever.